Hello everyone, I am back and I put in a long hard day working on the C2 Grand Sport. So let me show you what I've done. It also was hot today. Not enough to close it up and turn on the air conditioner, but it was close to it. Anyway, so what I did was I am making another splash mold. The reason I'm making a splash mold is because this rear section on this car is not accurate. The actual Grand Sports had a trunk. The production C2 Corvettes did not have a trunk. They just had an area back here. In fact, it didn't even open. It's not even a hatch like the newer ones. It is literally an enclosed area like this. They made this look kind of like a Grand Sport, but they didn't quite. The vents that they put on there aren't exactly right, and they're not in the exact location. And again, there's no trunk there. The owner bought a reproduction of the back section that has the trunk and has the vents in the right location. So he wants that put on. Well, in order to do that, I've got to cut this one off. Once I cut it off, it's going to be difficult to align it, or it would typically be difficult to align it. So what I decided was, instead of trying to level everything and all that, what I would do is I would make a splash mold. This splash mold will be this back section that you see in orange. It will actually use the fender flares on each side and the back tail as reference points, and the window as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a splash mold. Then once I make the splash mold, I'm going to take it off. I am going to trim this existing back hatch section where the new hatch section is going to go on. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the new hatch section inside of this splash mold. Then I'm going to put the splash mold with that on top of this. Like I said, it's going to reference off of the fender flares in the back section. It doesn't go all the way to the back. It leaves like an inch across the back, so it will rest there. That will ensure that the new back section is in the proper location. Once I do that, I will bond the new back section to the existing lower section, and it will become one piece again. One of the challenges I had, actually still have, but luckily I think it's been figured out, is for some reason they had cut this rear piece. I couldn't figure out why they had cut it, because I don't see anything wrong with it. And it doesn't match, it no longer matches the curve of the tail section. So I was trying to find out, is this correct? Because as you can see, this is straighter, it goes straight down right there, whereas the other one has a curve the entire direction. So when I push it in, if I push the bottom in, then obviously the center part of this right in here is too far in. Anyway, so what I've discovered is that in all likelihood, this started off life as a production C2 Corvette, which means it had a factory steel frame, which was probably U-channel. So it's like a rectangular one, but only has three sides. It has one side open. The Grand Sports had a round tube. So what they had to do was they had to remove the original frame out from under this car. The original C4s had bumpers, so there had to be a support for the bumper. The support for the bumper on the frame probably came all the way to the back here. So when they went to take the frame out from under the body, it wouldn't come out because this curved section underneath trapped the frame in. So what they did was, to get the frame out, they cut it right here. They flexed it and got the frame out, put the new tubular frame in, and it doesn't have a bumper section. I'd get under there, but I've got all of this orange gel coat that is still wet enough that if I get under there, I'm going to get gel coat all over me, which I don't want to do. Anyway, so that's probably what happened. And then they hadn't gotten around to fixing it. So that's now my job. I just didn't want to fix it, to put it back in place not knowing why they had cut it, because maybe they had cut it because the curve was wrong or something like that, and they were going to fix the curve. So that explanation that was given to me sounds right. They needed to cut it to get the clearance to get that out, and then it just needs to be put back where it was, which of course I like way better than coming up with some other third curve that's not the outside curve, it's not the inside curve, it's something in between. All right, so this mold will also, splash mold will also help me with that, because I can go in, take the splash mold, fix it, get the right curve there, and then use it to hold the back section in place while I fix the fiberglass and bond it in place. The reason why I'm going through all that is because this thing's not upside down, but it's also kind of at a, 30-degree angle or something like that. It's gonna be very hard to work with fiberglass. Gravity's not going to be my friend, let's put it that way. So by fixing it separately in the mold, that'll make it much easier. I can do some of the work face up, and then do only the minimal amount that I have to face down. This orange is the tooling gel coat. So when I'm done, this could conceivably be a tooling mold, but as people have told me with the last one, this mold might not come off because there's places where it wraps under and all that. I don't care because I don't need the whole thing, but again, it's here in front of me. I figure I might as well make as much as I can, and if I have to cut part of it and destroy part of it, doesn't matter. I just wasted some time and material, but I may end up getting a, like say, 3/4 of this that I can use in the future. The other reason I don't care if I damage it is because, again, I'm cutting this off. There's about, I don't know, an inch, inch and a half. I'll have to get the other piece all the way around here that wraps around. So I'm going to cut it here, and this whole top part gets thrown away. Not thrown away, I'm keeping it for me, but it doesn't go with the car anymore. It gets replaced by the new one. So I will have this piece in the future so that I could make a copy of this, or have one made. I probably won't make it myself because I'm tired of doing that. But anyway, in the future, I can have a rear section. Again, it won't be accurate because it's not like a real Grand Sport with the trunk and all that. But for what I'm doing, for the cars I'm making, they're not accurate anyway. I mean, I'm putting a Grand Sport body on a C8. That was never done. And I'm putting a Grand Sport body on a C6. That was never done. So the goal of my cars is not to be accurate representations, but to give you the flavor of a Grand Sport on a C6 and a C8. So the same thing, I kind of wrapped it around the corner here. And so obviously that would not come out. Again, it's one of those, when you work with it, you say, oh, I can kind of go this direction. The other thing is, last week I had put PVA on this. I got the surface in nice shape, put PVA on it, which is polyvinyl alcohol, which forms like a plastic film. That's to allow the parts to release. But it doesn't always release easy. It is water soluble, but I mean, it's not like it instantly turns to mush. With water, it takes some soaking. So then what I did was I waxed on top of the PVA. That would make it to where the mold does not stick to the PVA, ideally. Then I ran across, someone recommended this stuff. Come around here and show you this. So this is a mold release. It's called Fiberglass 1153. Supposedly 5 minutes from application to film. You put it on, you can either spray it on, or it says you can rub it on, and then give it 5 minutes, do it, and the parts easily release is what it says. Okay, I'll believe it when I see it, but it's worth a try because the other methods are labor intensive and suck, and the parts don't easily release. So we'll see if it works. I didn't use it correctly because I'd already put down the PVA and the wax, so I put this on top of that. Well, this is a liquid, and PVA is water soluble. It's not only water soluble, but apparently it's also somewhat soluble by this stuff. So when I sprayed it on, I did mist it on and was real careful. And I did see where it was starting to soften the PVA, so I just let it alone, let it evaporate. It didn't really damage the PVA. As a test, I did spray it on this area up here on the roof. I don't need this roof area again, but it was there. So then I took a towel and rubbed it on, and the towel turned green. The PVA is green, so if it didn't attack the PVA at all, this towel would not have turned green. Now, it didn't attack it, but the fact that it did turn green means it did something to it. So I decided I would just be careful. I misted the 1153 on as best as I could. So, bottom line is, this may pop off easily. It might not pop off easily because of the way I did it. If it doesn't pop off easily, I won't know what to blame it on. Is it the PVA? Is it the wax? Is it the 1153? Is it the fact that I didn't use the 1153 right? So the next thing I do, which is going to be the body, the front end that I made off of the mold, the other splash mold, I'm going to use strictly the 1153 and see how it works. The other thing is, it says that the 1153 needs to be applied onto a, quote, Class A surface. So I had to find out from my friends that do this, what the heck is a Class A surface? Well, it's basically a highly polished or buffed surface. That's not what this was that I put this on. So again, the 1153 might not work correctly on this, but I am going to bought the stuff to buff the inside of the mold for the front end, so I will use it correctly and I will see what it does. All right, I also got kind of a buzz. It's been a long day. It's been like 12, 14 hours doing this, so I got kind of a buzz from this, being around these chemicals. They definitely have a strong odor to them. Anyway, so I got a headache. All right. Oh, the other thing is, you'll notice this surface is not smooth. It doesn't matter. I put it on with a brush. One of the key things is you have to make sure the gel coat's on thick enough. If you put it on too thin, when you go to put the resin on it, the resin will attack it, and it'll do what's called alligatoring. And what happens is the surface of the gel coat is not thick enough to resist, and the resin attacks it because it's all polyester based. So you got to make sure it's thick enough. So what I do, I use a paintbrush. You could use a dump gun like they do with undercoating or bed coating, something like that, but I don't want to mess with that. So I just use a cheap chip brush, put it on, I glob it on, so that's why it looks like it does. It is literally globbed on. I did try mixing it a little bit hot because I've never had gel coat harden on me or start to cure before I was ready for it, or kick is what they call it. Well, it did this time. So if you look, there's blobs here. That's where it started already hardening, to where it went from a spreadable state to a not spreadable state. So I just spread it as quick as I could. Doesn't matter because I'm going to put fiberglass on top of this. This is the back side. This is just a splash mold, so it doesn't matter. What matters is the surface that's underneath, which is where I have the PVA, the 1153, and the wax. That surface is not perfect because of the 1153 kind of attacking the PVA. If I could have polished it or rubbed it, that would have been good. But like I said, I didn't want to risk damaging anything. So this will be a pretty good mold, but it won't have a surface that you would be able to pop the part out and immediately just use it. But that's not my intention anyway. I'm going to hack it up and put it on a C8 or a C6, so it doesn't really matter. It would be nice if it was a nice, perfect surface, but that's not what's going to happen. The other thing is I might have to end up cutting off these vents so that I can get the other part set on top of here. So I can, ideally I'd like to set that other part on top of here and then mark the edge exactly where the new part is, and then cut the existing body exactly where that edge is, or maybe, you know, have a little bit of a space. And then do the thing same thing like I said with the mold and all that. It's not critical. I could make it, you know, I could put a 1/2 inch gap, a 1/4 inch gap, whatever it is I want. But I thought, wow, that'd be great if I could just set it on there. It fit on there. The splash mold I used would strictly be for alignment, and then I can go ahead and bond it just like that. I don't know for sure what I'm going to do there. One other thing, the C2s from the factory had vents here. The Grand Sports do not have vents. What I did was I used some of this silver, I want to say duct tape, but it's not duct tape, but it's like duct tape. It's for dryer vent tape. It's slightly different. It doesn't have the real thick surface, it's thin. It's almost like this clear tape, only it's aluminized. So anyway, I covered up those holes with that. It doesn't look perfect because it doesn't need to, because in either case, if it's going on to a C2, there's vents there. If it's going on to a Grand Sport, that's flat anyway. So what's there is won't work for either one. It would be very difficult to get that surface. It's undercut, so making a mold of that would be very difficult. If I did decide to do a C2 to a pseudo Grand Sport in the future, I would probably just buy a C2 and do it that way. So that's another reason. Or buy a reproduction body. They're out there. In fact, there's racing bodies out there that are even less expensive than a reproduction one. So after doing all of this, it's a lot of work to do this. So if you can buy it and it'll meet your need, that's great. The only reason I'm doing all of this is because I plan on making multiples. It is way more time and money to do it for one than to just go out and buy it. You would probably break even at 2, and then if you do more than 2, then you're coming out ahead doing your own. All right, I think that's got everything covered. Like I said, I'm tired. I'm getting out of here. So, like, subscribe, hit the alert, hit the thanks if you want to donate, and if you don't like what I'm doing, you don't know Jack. Bye.